Welcome to the Movement is Life Caucus third installment of the Exploring Health Equity online symposium series. My name is Millicent Gorham. I am the Executive Director of the National Black Nurses Association. It gives me great pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Broderick Sawyer, who is a clinical psychologist in New York with a specialty in race-based trauma, mindfulness, and compassion. Dr. Sawyer has written a variety of scientific articles and book chapters on racial health disparities and is set to open and direct a racial trauma center in 2021 with Genesee Valley Psychology. In terms of daily activities, Dr. Sawyer offers diversity and mental health consultation to organizations, sees individual therapy clients, teaches mindfulness and compassion based meditation, provides lectures, workshops, and a variety of custom designed trainings. Let us welcome Dr. Broderick Sawyer.
All right. Thank you very much for the lovely presentation. Thank you all for joining us here today. We're going to talk about something today that has a lot of mystery around it. And looking at the slide here, we're just going to talk about how when we want to engage in compassion and feel compassion for each other, how that may not happen. All right. To solve a problem, first we need to know what the problem is. So when we think about the world, we probably ask ourselves, why aren't we nicer? Why aren't we kinder? Why do we cut ourselves off from each other? This is really about conditioning and learning. So what we learn is to wall ourselves off from our emotional worlds. And then as that happens, our natural capabilities of extending compassion and kindness gets limited to really just family members, close friends, our children, our partners. But what about the person who's maybe suffering in an impoverished neighborhood? Why does it make it very easy for us to sort of rationalize, well, the government's going to take care of them. Well, it's not my responsibility. Why do we not feel that heartfelt connection to others who may not be in our inner circle? And also, why might we cut ourselves off from ourselves when we're suffering, when we're struggling? What is that resistance that we have, and what are the consequences to it? So within this framework, what we're going to be talking about is really liberation psychology. So liberation psychology says that there's nothing wrong with your emotions. There's nothing wrong with, the plant in the middle of the desert. All we need to do is nourish the environment around the plant, and then it will begin to restore itself. So your abilities to tap into your natural feelings of compassion and love for others and for yourself, that's natural. So what we're going to do today is just show you a few steps of how to really get there, which is going to start with just telling you a bit of a story I'm sure we can all agree on is why we cut ourselves off from our emotional worlds and from connecting with each other. And just looking back at the slide here, compassion is understanding and accepting the human experience as it is, not how we wish it was, right? The word I say a lot to my therapy clients, the word shouldn't exist because should is aspirational. Life is what it is. And that's really hard when life is really hard. We're in the middle of a pandemic, we're in the middle of a civil rights movement. A lot of things are happening, and there's a lot of emotion that comes with that. And then we're not even really talking about maybe the life of nurses, right? Or the life of the mother who now has to work and take care of two kids at home who are also on distance learning. So there's a lot that's flooding us right now. And when we activate our compassion system, we want more emotional openness, the ability to accept and feel feelings of fear, of sadness, of anger, of joy, of anything that you're feeling, all within the realm of your heart space. And what happens is we lock those parts down, and we are taught to lock those parts down. So then when we're trying to extend and feel into these emotions, there are blocks. There's a lot of blocks. So what we want to learn is how do we engage ourselves and open up those blocks. And a lot of what I'm sharing with you today, I've sat with a lot of therapy clients, so I can see when they're locking their emotions down, what's sort of happening when they're locking, and what's happening afterward, and how do they break out of that space. And especially when it comes to my race-based stress and trauma patients or workshop attendees, how do we live in a world where discrimination and oppression still happen, and still have the space to feel free to feel whatever it is that we want to feel, but not becoming overwhelmed by those emotions. And compassion is really a core piece to that. And the title is really, it says what it means, power. It is very, very powerful. And to tap into that power, we really have to learn what are the steps to open up that heart space so we can actually spread our arms into our own heart space. So this talk isn't about outer control and changing the systems. I can talk about that all day. This is about a way to control your inner environment so that you can have more expansiveness in the ways in which you engage yourself, your emotions, other people, in the work that you do. Okay. And the last point on this slide I'll make, this is about emotion. It's not, you can't think your way into feeling. It's a different language. It's almost like a calculator trying to communicate with a unicorn. It doesn't work. And that's what we're going to do, is move out of our heads and more so into our bodies today. And we'll give you some tangible exercises that you can take and integrate into your life, right after this talk. But a bit of a disclaimer, these practices can take time. They can take time to practice and develop. So to really benefit, what we really want you to do is just be open. You have to essentially taste the food before you reject it or accept it. So if you're hearing the stuff that I'm saying right now and you're like, nah, he's what he's talking about, let's not listen to him, then you're already missing out. So all I ask for is for openness as we engage. And then as you engage with that sense of openness, that's when the practices can really take root, when we're really open. And I'll, of course, have space for questions and different things after these practices. So let's talk a little bit about why it is we sort of block ourselves off from this emotional system, which naturally has compassion, right? So what tends to happen is that we either avoid our emotions completely. So this sort of, this I'm speaking to my dad, I ain't scared, or just different things like that, pushing away our emotion. Or we get locked into this overindulgence, right? So we either pretend that our emotions aren't there, or we overfixate our emotions and try to push them away as if something is wrong with the fact that we have emotions. We have tear ducts, we have emotions, that means it's normal, right? And I spend a lot of time teaching clients that, hey, you're reacting to your reactions, So if we eat a big meal, say last night, I eat a burrito and I'm sitting there and my stomach is digesting the food and I feel some cramps and I feel different things. I'm not panicking as if, oh no, what is my body doing? I understand that my body is digesting. The same thing happens with emotions. We might have a difficult day at work. We might have a difficult relationship and we are experiencing something. And then we either respond with, oh no, there's an emotion here. What do I do with it to make it go away? I want to push it away, push it away, push it away. And we're over fixating on the fact that it's not going away. And then that creates more panic. Oh no, it won't go away. Maybe it won't. And now the metaphor I like to use is now we're standing next to the trash can and complaining that it stinks, right? So we have to take the trash out. It's there. We can't just stand here and look at it. We have to do something or engage in some practice to help that emotional digestion. But the opposite response to that is the denial response. So I'm just going to pretend that my emotions are not there at all. Everything is fine. And then we see a lot of overworking, and we see our workaholics. We see people over engage in distractions, the Netflix binges or the overeating to try to make ourselves feel better, substance use, and different things like that. And a lot of psychological disorders and emotional dysregulation has to do with this process, either blocking the emotion like completely and trying to deny it, and then it just comes out in different ways, or we're sort of over fixating right on it and then just reacting and reacting and reacting. And like I said, trying to solve the problem of the heart using this calculator. It's a different language. So today, what we're going to do is talk about what language is really required to be able to disrupt this basic process of either too much pushing away or too much pulling close with our emotional responses. And relationships, and looking back at the slide quickly, relationships function in the same way. So if I relate to my own emotions with denying them, if I deny my own emotions, what will happen if my child comes up to me and says, yeah, I'm sad? If I'm not comfortable with my own sadness, I'm going to invalidate that child just the same as I invalidate myself. So the way you interact with your emotions is also the ways in which you interact with other people's emotions. So the more compassion and engagement you can have with your own emotions, the more you can do that with other people. Okay. So it's not just about your inner world. It's also, your sort of inner circle, right? And the more comfortable we become, sort of settling into the present moment, into that sort of flow state, that river of emotions, when it starts to come out, we aren't giving that very American response of, oh, don't cry. Oh, I'm sorry. Don't cry. Don't cry. There's like, oh, it's okay. It's okay. Like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Someone's crying. There's nothing wrong with crying. We're just saying there's something wrong with crying. And then we block ourselves off from that. And like I said, then we have a host of, whether it's mental illness or we have overeating or substance use or, becoming workaholics or different things. So our cup gets full and we try to pretend that it's not full. And then we end up doing that with other people. And we end up doing that with our children, and they end up doing that with their children. And that's really the issue. And compassion is really found in this balance. I have emotional pain, whether it's fear, anxiety, anger, sadness, right? I have this pain that I wish to avoid. And at the same time, I have the power to extend kindness. Okay, I have the power to extend kindness. So that's really what we want to balance, this both and. I don't like this pain, but I can also extend kindness to it, right? Because pushing it away will not work. That will catch up to you in one way or another, right? But it's not all or nothing. Sometimes avoidance can help, right? But we are over avoidant. And then we either over avoid or we really go into whatever it is we're feeling to the point where we can't stop thinking about it, right? So it's all or nothing. And what we want, again, is that balance, that both and. Here's some pain that I do not like, that's painful, and I can extend kindness to it to make it easier for me while I'm suffering. You always want to think about emotions like a loved one who is sick. All you're trying to do, that the virus will kind of take its course, or the illness will take its course. But what are you doing? You're not saying, oh, don't be sick. You're not sitting next to him saying, oh no, you're sick. Oh no, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? We're going to do. You're maybe fluffing some pillows. You're making some soup. You are reading them a story. You are turning on the Lakers game. That's for me. That's from when I'm sick. And you're trying to induce that comfort. You're acknowledging the sickness, the pain. And the same thing goes moment to moment for our emotions. Okay, moment to moment. So now looking at the slides here, how are we conditioned out of our natural state of compassion? What happens? Why do we have these all or nothing responses? Well, we aren't really taught anything about emotions. Nothing. We aren't taught anything. So this K through 12 emotional intelligence training and compassion education, if this were to happen, then I wouldn't maybe I'd maybe be out of a job, as far as being a therapist. So a lot of what happens to people is that they enter into this world and then they have difficult emotions. And then they share those difficult emotions with their caregivers. The problem is their caregivers don't know how to deal with their own emotions. So then they give these either overindulgent responses, oh no, you're scared. Oh no, the kid's scared. And then the kid's like, okay, I guess I should freak out every single time I have an emotion. And they learn, oh, this is how I interact with my emotions. I overindulge in them, you know. Or if I, this is a true story. I reach out to my baby boomer dad, who hard blue collar life. He's not talking about feelings. He's just, come on, get over it, son. What are you doing? So then I say, Dad, I'm scared, or Dad, I'm this, or Dad, I'm that. And then there's the sort of suck it up response. And then so I learned, okay, so I guess this is how I deal with my fear. I just shove it down real deep and don't worry about it and let it fester. So in that way, what we need to understand is that we are conditioned to do this, but it is also possible, equally as possible, to uncondition ourselves to respond to our emotions in these ways. And this is where not just therapy, like, of course, if you feel like you need therapy, please seek out services, absolutely. But also, it's just noticing when I feel something uncomfortable, when I feel fear or anger or different things, and creating an environment that holds that space for me, right? In these very simple ways. And that's extending kindness and compassion. Okay. Then, further, as we look back on this slide, individualistic society, this competition, right? It really gets to us and it makes us over identify with our careers in such a way that makes us feel as if we are not productive, if we are not useful, then we are not worthy of love and affection. That's what that does. All right. And that's a very tricky thing. How do we live in this society which reinforces this competition, which preaches this achieve, 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 achieve. And then when you're not achieving, then all of a sudden you feel like you're not worthy, like you're unlovable. So then what do? Instead of addressing that feeling, we just say, oh, okay, I have to achieve more. Let me just try to jump through more hoops and more and more. But then we just don't feel that sense of overwhelming satisfaction of feeling lovable. It's almost like capitalism keeps raising the bar and raising the bar and raising the bar on this worthiness. And people get to the top and, well, I guess, why do I not feel good enough? And and I use this example a lot, if money was the key to happiness and success was the key to happiness, you would make some and then you would stop at a certain point. But you don't, because you're chasing something and then consuming something that isn't actually the food that you need, right? And the food that we need is vulnerable connection, not just with other people, but mostly with ourselves. Our ability to connect with others has a lot to do with connecting with ourselves and our own emotions. It's not to say all or nothing. That's not to say that people can't connect unless they have that emotional connection, but it makes it quite comfortable to be able to engage with people when things are hard, if we know how to engage with ourselves when things are really hard. Okay. And this sort of production equated to worth, right? That is one thing in particular that we want to acknowledge and let go. Okay. That's a way to handle economics. Okay. Like my production equals my resources, but it doesn't equal my worth, my self-worth. That's a big issue. Okay. So, and as we last point on this slide, when we let go of this oppression that we have against ourselves, right? When we really let go of that, then we can engage our emotions really as they are, not as we wish they would be, but as they are. Okay. And we are lovable because we were born. That's the truth. It's your birthright to feel compassion, to feel love for yourself, to deserve kindness. It's your birthright. It's not something that you get once you check boxes, right? That's just what you learn, what you were conditioned to believe, right? So as we wake up out of this self-critical matrix, right, how do we then engage ourselves, okay, without projecting these beliefs on ourselves, such as not good enough, or oh, I'm having a hard time emotionally, I should suck it up, or I shouldn't tell anyone, right? Or I shouldn't be kind to myself. I should use shame and fear to motivate myself, you know. All of these different things, we don't have to do things those ways. Okay. So now we sort of talked about what the problem is. Okay. And so now we're going to talk about the solution. So we need a few ingredients. You know, looking at this slide, we need emotional stability, sustainability, excuse me. It is not sustainable to push away your emotions or pull them too close and fixate on them. It's not sustainable to have an emotion, and then once you face it, you overthink on that emotion to try to push it away. That's not how your system works. That's not how your emotional system works. Okay. But as we're looking at this slide, this is how emotions do work. Okay. This is how we engage ourselves and feel that love and compassion for ourselves and our own suffering, as well as the pain and suffering of others in a way that's not overwhelming. So as you're looking at these ingredients, feelings of safety, openness, generating compassionate, warm feelings, these things, you don't have to be where you're not. So as we engage in exercises that hit on these 3 points, okay, feelings of safety are number one. Number one, we don't feel safe in this society. Why? Well, we have to, let's just walk through this a little bit. So we wake up at around 6:30, 7 o'clock, and now we're getting ready to go into our job. We get there. Hello, I'm waving to everyone, all that. My kids are at school, my loved ones, the people I'm really connected with, I don't have a lot of contact with them. And when I do, it's either on the weekend when I'm, doing chores or, doing different things like that. I have to go everywhere. I have to do this, do that. This person needs to hang out. This, blah, blah, blah. I need to relax. Where is the time to really not have any expectations on myself? There's no breathing room, right? And I'm not here to say that we need to change the way society works before we have time. What I'm saying is you have to make time for yourself to feel safe. And you can also learn how to feel safe even when you are in, those really chaotic environments as you're, getting ready in the morning. There's a way to do it where you don't have to be sped up. You don't have to deny your stress or overindulge in it while you're brushing your teeth. Oh man, I'm so stressed. Or brushing your teeth and it's, oh man, I'm fine. I'm not stressed at all. You don't have to use those two responses. There's a way to be present with your experience, feel safe in your experience, and just stay there and be there and at least be in that place of safety. But then the second piece of this is that, okay, I feel safe, but now emotions are coming up, right? Or thoughts are coming up, or difficult, loud experiences are coming up inside of me. And I don't know how to not fixate on certain things, right? And this is where the second piece comes in. Number 2, openness without fixation, right? So the way we kind of want to think about this is that when I feel sadness, I feel sadness, and then my mind starts to fixate on that. And it says, and my conditioning comes in, it says, oh no, this sadness is bad. Sadness is not good. That response that my father gave me when I tried to express to him that I was sad was invalidating. So that means that in this moment, as an adult, I should block off that sadness. Oh no, why is that sadness not going away? Oh no, there's a story about this sadness. Now I'm telling a negative story about this experience that is happening inside of me. A natural experience. We're human. Right? When a lot of people ask me, is this normal? Well, if it's happening inside of you, a human, then yeah, it probably is normal, especially when it comes to emotions. So when I'm feeling sad, now I feel safe, emotions are safe enough to come up, but now I feel sad and I'm fixating and I'm creating a narrative around that sadness. Well, instead, I can notice the sadness. I can notice the story about sadness. I can notice my urge to push it away. But also, I can notice that I'm grateful I'm in an apartment. I'm grateful I can be warm. I might also notice the sounds outside. I might also notice, the softness of the blanket, on top of me. I might notice the TV. I might notice other things. So we're having the sadness, but it's not on this pedestal. The sadness is one part of a very vast experience of existing, and it's ebbing and flowing. It's ebbing and flowing, right? And when we learn how to have this balanced perspective of our emotions, and that emotions are a natural part of life, just like taking out the trash is, just like the cold weather. I'm looking outside; it's snowing, y'all. I can't take it. Um, but it's a natural part of experience and phenomenon, just like your breathing, just like your thoughts, just like your emotions, just like your digestive system. When you have the blood pumping through your veins, emotion is one more experience that is happening, and we don't need to push it away or pull it close or overreact to it. Just sort of let it do its thing. We don't need to control it and box it in. Okay, and that's openness. Openness without fixating on I feel this way and I feel that way and that means this and that means that. Just let it be, let it flow. Then the emotion, when it's ready, it will pass. Right? Emotions, they ebb and they flow. Right? And we trust impermanence. And one thing, that I teach my patients a lot is that impermanence is painful. Impermanence is painful. So when I'm happy, I have to understand that happy feeling will go away. Okay, it's impermanent. Right? And then I also know that I feel good now, but I could feel a negative, hurtful emotion later. Right? So it's not always like, oh, I feel great, and that's it. It's I feel great. Oh, and sort of lurking behind the corner, it might go away. But then also impermanence can be good, right? So it can be painful in that way, but then also impermanence can be helpful, right? Helpful to remember. And I think especially when we're trying to not fixate on emotions and pain, the emotion, it ebbs and it flows. So as I'm feeling that sadness, I'm feeling it fully. I might be crying. I have to remember that this emotion is impermanent. Right? And sometimes just remembering that piece of things can allow us to engage the pain and engage it with kindness, knowing that I'm just trying to make this emotion comfortable while it's coming to visit me. What does this emotion have to teach me? What does it have to say about my circumstances? How can we learn to just taste and allow the emotion to be here, even while we're engaging in our day-to-day lives? You know, in this moment right now, I'm experiencing a little bit of just regular like seasonal affective disorder, right? Things get gloomy outside, you start to feel a little bit down. That's one part of my experience. I also have a lot of joy that I get to share all of this with you. I have, some mild irritation with the volume of my heater in this house. I can't shut it off. It's a freeze. I'm on razor's edge right now with that. Do I turn it off? Do I not? Right. So there's a lot that's going on, but my awareness is being kept even. I'm not overreacting to one or another, right? And I'm sharing, and I'm speaking from the perspective of my metacognition. This is sort of my observing awareness, which is rooted in number one, being safe, feeling safe. You know, um, as we were preparing for the presentation, that we hop on the call. It's an hour before we're prepping. I felt myself at around 11 a.m. I felt, I'm a little riled up here. I might need to go off camera for a bit and do some breathing practices, relax myself more, right? And I noticed that, and that's from a place of understanding that I will fixate if I don't feel that safety, right? I might fixate on, oh no, the sound in the back, oh no, blah, blah, blah. But that evenness of attention causes almost a water-like feeling rather than just blocked and solid and I'm teaching you about compassion. Here's number one and number two. We need that flow to really engage here. And then now, number three, generate compassionate, warm feelings. So once we feel safe, once we feel more open, able to acknowledge multiple things at once, now we can connect with and extend gratitude to the relationships we have with people, as well as with our pets, with, if we love our jobs, if we love a spiritual deity, now we can engage and open our hearts to that space and actually feel love on purpose, on cue. But these are sort of the ingredients that slows things down and then allows us to open up those spaces. And we're going to use some visualization practices to engage in that more compassionate space. Okay. And to generate compassionate feelings, on purpose is also to recognize when they're happening spontaneously and appreciating those moments when we feel that warmth. For myself, it might be with a client who is having a hard time but figures it out, and has a great session and is able to do something that they weren't able to do before. You know, for a nurse, it might be a patient who's really, really struggling, but then is getting discharged, and beat COVID-19. And there's a lot of love and grace in seeing that person having their life back and not no longer being afraid. And this is love. And even as I move into that space and visualize that, you can sense the emotional intensity coming from me, right? And that's really the space that connects us. That's what will heal society if we can all do that, if we can feel that for each other, regardless of the things our minds are telling us. You know, if it's a white person and they are blocking themselves off, from feeling compassion for maybe say a black male who is incarcerated, right? What are the things? That person doesn't feel safe. That person doesn't, is fixating on their mind and fixating on, well, maybe I don't want to feel guilty for my white privilege. So I can't feel that shame because I want to extend it to myself, that compassion to myself. So instead, I'm going to ignore the pain of others. And that happens a lot. I don't want to feel so bad. I don't want to feel connected to that person's pain. So I'm going to wall myself off. Right. So as we open and we feel safe, as we have this openness without fixation, allowing our experience to flow, and then feel that sense of love and connection to ourselves, to people who are important to us, to our patients who are important to us, then when the suffering of someone else comes into play, we don't shy away. We can connect with other people as if they are our family members, right? And this is really the power. This is the power. And let's as we get into the practice, you'll sort of see what I mean. And so last points on these slides, and we'll move into these practices. Nothing is wrong with your pain. You were told this and reinforced for it repeatedly, for blocking off and cutting yourself off from how you feel. And it's not just about pain. Pain is the thing that usually makes us, move away from ourselves. It's also joy. Joy is a very vulnerable emotion. We feel joy and happiness, and we might question, do I deserve to feel this? Well, I shouldn't feel this way right now in this moment because X, Y, Z. And there are these reasons we give ourselves for not feeling joy or for not laughing, or different things like that. And it doesn't have to be that way. We're oppressing ourselves in that way. And it's not just that we do that in spaces where we're working, right? Because sometimes, you at work, you can't be joking around all the time, But when you're not at work, things are still very rigid and serious in some ways. So we want to open up that blockage and experience joy like we deserve it, and learning to feel that lighter, more tender touch to ourselves with kindness, or we can then relate to ourselves like we are a child, just trying to have a good time. Because why not? Why not? And lastly, we want to learn how to see the pain of others as my own and see the pain, my pain, through the eyes of others, right? So if I see the pain of others as my own, then I seek to address it, right? That's compassion. That's compassion. Your pain is my pain. It's not guilt. It's not, oh, I'm a bad person if I don't help you. It is my left hand has a splinter and my right hand pulls out the splinter. That's connectedness. That's connectedness. That's oneness. We don't say the left hand doesn't say thank you. It's a part of the same body. When we help each other, right, we're helping ourselves. We're together in this journey of life. And this is how we can interact with ourselves and each other in a way that really respects the great pain and suffering that can come along with the human experience, especially at this time in our history, especially at this time. And this is what our bodies and our hearts, they were designed to do. It's in our hardware to reach this place of connection. Okay. Um, and extending kindness to yourself, that can be tricky as well. So as we're engaging in these practices, we always want to come back to our breath. Okay. So I think that's a big one that I'll say again and again and again, is really slow down and settle into your breath. Because you might get to number one here in our ingredients, feelings of safety, and you might try to open without fixating, but it's just not happening. Maybe you're just too fixated. That's okay. Stay in your breath. Just work with your breath, work on feeling safe. It took me, I want to say, about the first 2 to 3 years of meditation practice before I feel like I mastered the openness without fixation, because I had a lot of fear built up in myself. Coming from a blue collar family, living life as a Black man in an anti-Black society, a lot of pressure, the same capitalistic pressure that everyone experiences, regardless of their race or their status. It causes a lot. So we need to really work through those weeds. And I'll be quite encouraging for you to slow down and really just settle into yourself. Okay. So now we're going to very briefly open it up for comments, questions and different things like that.
So, Dr. Sawyer, this is Millicent. We have a couple of wonderful questions for you. One, we want to say that Noah wants to mention that he's finding this talk very insightful and helpful. And we want everyone to know that there will be a recording of this video will be placed on the Movement is Life Caucus website, and we will also let you know when it is available. We have a question. Compassion is found in balance. How does physical pain impact that balance?
More pain, more kindness, more kindness. A lot of times with physical pain, right? We of course have the value of body-based intervention, right? Body-based, we mean medication, we mean movement, we mean physical therapies, things like that. But that feeling safe, sometimes when our bodies are in our fight, flight, or freeze mode, there's a locking effect. So we're sort of tightening up. And the most poignant example is maybe back pain or something like that. So it's not always just maybe that slip disc. It's not always just that. It's also your body tightening around the slip disc to try to defend it and protect it. But then what that does, it doesn't allow any breathing room in that space. So using number one, feeling safety and using the breath to reduce the cortisol, the stress hormone. When we relax into that space, it allows the body to sort of calm down and actually help itself regenerate. So I would say fear is really related to that physical pain and that locking up. And then just extending more kindness. If there's pain, then that means it's time for more kindness, as much as you can give. That's not always possible. People have to go to work and they have to take care of kids or do different things. but we want to extend that breadth and kindness and ease as much as we can. I hope that gets at the question. Physical pain, my heart goes out. That's very, very difficult. But we want to, as much as we can, have a holistic perspective. So yes, engage in all of the physical aspects, but also, work to breathe, work on nutrition. All these things are reflections of kindness, as well as, going to therapy or having fun. Like these are reflections of kindness. Yeah.
One last question.
Mhm.
One attendee wants tips on how to break that cycle of production equaling self-worth in high-performing professionals. And
Mhm.
is this connected to imposter syndrome?
Mhm. Ooh. So imposter syndrome, I would say, is a way that we learn that we have to sort of measure up. And then we feel like we're not measuring up. So then what does it do? It forces us to work harder. So we're sort of being manipulated and gaslit into performing, and having that bar just rise on us. So sometimes I think the best thing to do is to recognize when you are about to do extra work as a high performer, and then really ask yourself, have the conversation with yourself, do I need to do this right now? What are the consequences for me waiting to send this email in the morning? What if I wrote out a draft of the email and then just let it sit and then just answered it maybe the next day? So you want to start to play with the rules. We want to start to break little rules like here or there, right? We get that call from our boss at like 8 o'clock at night. Hmm, See what happens. See what happens. If you have a tyrant of a boss and you were supposed to be on call or something like that, that's one thing. But a lot of times we have a choice, but we're not choosing it because of that imposter syndrome. We think we're not good enough. So then what are we doing? We're scrambling to try to feel that sense of good enough. But it has nothing to do with your career, right? We want to develop ourselves in a holistic way. And just speaking to the openness, right? So I can, on the one hand, be effective in this realm of my life, in this high performing job. I can be effective in my personal relationships. I can be an effective Laker fan. I can, have a really great time when I'm just alone, right? So we want to stop fixating, right? Again, on one way of getting that sense of reinforcement, because you are not your job. You are not an economic plan. You are a person. Don't identify with an economic plan. That's capitalism. Like that's just to put food on the table. It's not to give you a sense of identity and self-esteem, right? So sometimes it's just knowing and hearing that that's not it, and then looking elsewhere. And I think if that's anything I can give you this response is just start looking around at your life. Okay, what else gives me that sense of am I a really good mother? Like, am I a really good partner? Can I delight in that a little bit? Can I enjoy and have gratitude that I have a really nice connection with my partner, with my kid? Can I build more time around that? Even it's little tweaks, again, start playing with those rules. If I put my phone down at a certain time and I start to, and this is, I'll teach my clients a lot of this, how to manipulate power structures. You start just bending the rules ever so slightly. You usually answer anytime at night. You start answering, maybe stop answering around like 15 minutes sooner. And then, your boss gets used to that. Your job uses that. Then you drop it back a little bit further. Now it's at 30 minutes sooner. It's just very slippery slope to where you're getting everything you need to get done. You know what I mean? It's not a dire situation. You didn't need that now, just because you are really in this corporate go. Like, I don't need to be in that space, you know? And then when you come back the next day and you feel more rejuvenated, more energetic, then you will start to become reinforced for taking more space. So now you don't feel drained and you can actually work more. So rest is actually in service of capitalism and production. But this is a thing that we don't really recognize because we never plug our phone into the charger. You plug your phone into the charger, we really plug ourselves into those things that give us that energy, where they make us really feel good, and not that sort of like in the middle of the night covers up like, oh man, I got to do this, I to do this. Oh man, what do you think about that? That's draining your energy. So we want to give ourselves a chance to recharge. And then once we recognize that, oh, this is actually rejuvenating, this actually gave me a feeling of recharging. Now you're like, shoot, now I'm gonna just do it again and again and again and again. And then you start to see I can be impactful, right, without being go, 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 go. Arguably, I could be even more impactful. You start to see the busy work. You start to see where there's gas sort of leaking, in different places for no reason, right? Send one large email and CC everybody rather than needing to individually send an email to everybody because you're afraid of what they might think of you. Oh man, I'm not gonna do the job, get the work done. But we want to diversify your self-esteem, where you get it from. You know? So yeah, if there's no more questions for now, I'm gonna move now into our first exercise. So first we have the safety and breath. Okay. Um, so safety and breath. This is our really our first state that we want to induce. So before we think about not responding to that email, before we think about not over engaging in work and different things like that, first we need to feel safe. So with this exercise, what we're going to do is find a comfortable position in your seat. Okay, so comfort, very, very important. So if you're watching this webinar at your office, or something like that, or somewhere where it's hard to find that comfort, I want you to try anyway. I want you to just maybe adjust your seat a little bit, just really just kind of sink in your seat. And all we're going to do is we're going to engage in a breathing practice. Okay, so first things first, we're just going to take a very, very deep in breath. So I want you to really slow yourself down. Breathe all the way in. And then when you hit the top of the in breath, then just release. We're breathing all the way out. And then once we breathe all the way out, then we're going to breathe all the way back in. So we're really trying to feel and sense the air coming all the way in. And then we're letting go. Breathing all the way out, all the way out. And we're breathing all the way back in again. And as we're engaging in this practice, all we want to focus on is breathing all the way in and all the way out. That's it, just nice and easy. If you've started with your eyes open and you're having difficulty connecting, maybe try closing your eyes. Or if your eyes are closed and you're finding difficulty connecting, maybe open your eyes. Whatever feels comfortable. And all we're doing is we're focusing on getting air all the way in and then getting air all the way out. And what we're essentially doing is we are controlling the stress hormone, otherwise known as cortisol. So we are turning the volume down on our stress hormone, which is very much related to the rate of breath, the pace and rate of breath. So a lot of you might notice that you hadn't been breathing as deeply as maybe you thought you were. You might even notice as you're breathing that you have tightness in your shoulders or your jaw or different places or spaces. And what I want you to do as you're breathing, so again, let's breathe in, really fill the lungs, expand the lungs. All the way in. And then as we let go, I want you to let go of tension in the shoulders, tension in the breath. If you're alone, we're alone, you're on mute. If you want to let out a sigh, just like that, that's fine. Let it out, let it out. We want to sink into the sensation of gravity, pulling us, holding us down to our seat. Let go of any sort of propping up or holding, and just use the breath to, again, breathe all the way in, really inflate. You don't want to force. We're not forcing. We're not trying to breathe perfectly. There are no right answers with this. All we're doing is trying to give ourselves that breath. And then at the top of the breath, breathe all the way out. So then when the breath is all the way out, then breathe all the way in. And you'll even notice as you're breathing, when you get to the top of your breath and you've taken in as much as you can, then the air wants to escape. So it's almost like when you breathe all the way in, you get to that top, and then the air kind of goes out by itself. And then when you breathe out all the way, then the air suddenly starts to come back in. And if you see that, you're really breathing full. We want these full rotations of breath. And this is the first stage. This is what we want to master. Breathing all the way in. Just one more time for me. Really relax the shoulders on that out breath. Really. And sink into the breath. Sink into this moment. Any sounds around you, let them happen. Any sensations, let them happen. We're just focusing on breathing all the way in and then all the way out. And breathing all the way in again and breathing all the way out again. And this is the practice. Okay. And when you're ready, you can open the eyes and come back to the room. And in this space, we can sort of share maybe some feedback on how that practice went, some comments or different questions. And then I'll talk about just instructions for how to use this in your day-to-day life.
So, Dr. Sawyer, we have a question regarding physical therapy. Greg observes that physical therapy can integrate many of these wonderful mindfulness and compassion practices so that people can re-engage with physical activity without fear. You want to respond to that?
Exactly. We need to get out of this mind-body like separation. And, exactly. Fear does a few things. It causes that inflammation, right? So it makes the physical ailments more difficult to deal with. But then also there's an emotional piece that this attendee is speaking to that makes it hard for us to re-engage because of that fear. So then when we address the fear through the breath, it's one of the basic things. It's always with you. You don't need a therapist in your pocket per se. You can just use your breath all the time. So I love that in terms of integrating it with physical therapy. That's wonderful.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yes. So yeah, if any other folks have questions, we can just write them down. We'll be talking a little bit at the end, but let's move through. So instructions for use for this particular breath-based practice. Okay, so this is the pretty standard stuff that I give to a lot of my therapy clients, as well as workshop attendees and meditation students. We want to do this practice to start to see benefits for about 2 to 3 weeks daily. And when I say benefits, I don't mean that, okay, I did that relaxation practice and now I feel relaxed. Benefit means I do this practice 2 to 3 weeks daily, and then I start to feel relaxed even when I'm not doing the practice. That's benefit, right? So now it is affecting you even though you're not in that state of meditation or that state of breath work. So what we want to do is 2 to 3 weeks daily. Then we can move on to these other practices, which are a little more high level. But we want to do 2 to 3 times per day, and set your timer for 5 to 10 minutes. And you can also find a practice that I have on Spotify. You can look up Dr. Broderick Sawyer, Intro to Meditation, and also we have some resources we'll show you a little bit after for that. But this is the basic practice. This is what my clients use a lot, and they'll just keep using this one and they won't go on to the other practices. They'll say, wow, yeah, I feel more relaxed. I can see things sort of getting to me. I can see when I need to engage in self-compassion and different things like that. And this is all I need. We want a consistent place to sit and just to breathe. I use my chair. You can lay down if you want. You can do this in the morning. You can do it at night before you fall asleep. It's a great one for my clients who have a hard time falling asleep. This will usually solve a lot of that stuff pretty quickly. Because again, that inflammation, that fight flight reactivity, when we breathe and relax into ourselves, we can really settle ourselves down. Then the living practice of this, right? So that's the formal practice. Then on the slide, if you look at this living practice, if we practice breathing this way all the time, you become extremely present with what you're feeling in the moment. And you can essentially start to audit your life based on what makes you feel good versus bad. If I breathe and slow down to the present moment, I can sense what I'm feeling in the moment while I'm talking to you all. I can feel that sense of anxiety of, oh no, it's about to be 1 o'clock. Bro, you should kind of speed up just a little bit. Number one, we want some space for robust conversation, so I can feel that and taste that. And now I'm sort of shifting moment to moment how I present this so that I can make sure, oh, but we need to make sure that they understand at the same time. We can't just gloss over that stuff. So there's a balancing act that's going on that's based and rooted on my presence. And the more relaxed I am, the more present I can taste the moment and what the moment calls for, right? And that's the value of the living practice. So not just breathing practices in the morning or night, but trying to bring this quality of awareness and breath like right into your life. And this is one of the fastest ways we can talk about how to use the breath and mindfulness to really relax. Um, and yeah, and I think I just made that point. Good enough. Okay. So now let's move on to letting go of thoughts. So how do we get this more open state of awareness? So our ground floor is always our breath, right? So to be able to let go of thoughts or let go of sensations and let things flow, we need to feel relaxed. So just like you just did, let's start by just breathing and taking very deep in breaths. Just letting go. And for this particular practice, as we're breathing, it might be a little bit better to close your eyes for this one. Breathe all the way in and just. I'd like to also note that if you did the practice earlier and you didn't feel relaxed, it was hard for you to relax, I would encourage you to just practice breathing. So the second set of instructions, if you feel like you can't relax, I want you to just focus on breathing and kind of tune me out when I start to talk about thoughts. Right? First, we need to work on that ground floor, that foundation. Don't worry, the meditations, they're on Spotify. So if you really want to practice, you can go there after you learn just a little bit of feeling safe. It's a bit safer this way, more comfortable. Breathing all the way in a few more times. And then let go. Just let that air out. Slow down. Give it one more breath. So breathing all the way in. And then all the way out. And then now at this point, I want you to let your breath resume at a natural rhythm. So I don't want you to control your breath anymore. I want you to let your breath breathe itself. Just like your blood moves through your veins, your digestion system works. I want you to let your breath breathe. Instead of trying to control it, I want you to watch your breath. Just look at how your body breathes without you telling it to. Just watch. And I want you to then notice other things. So we have the breath that's here, breathing itself. We have my voice. And you have these words that I'm saying that have pauses, have different cadences. Sometimes I might speak softer or louder. And your mind's eye is picking up on these sounds. Again, I'd like to encourage anyone that's having a hard time, just go right back to breathing deeply. But if you feel like you're able to observe, please engage. So as you're watching your breath, it's breathing, you're hearing sounds. Your body is making contact with a chair or a seat. Your feet are making contact with the ground. You're back on the chair. And all you're doing is you are noticing the contact that your mind is having with the present moment. And all of these things are happening at once. And lastly, I want you to turn your attention towards your thoughts. So I want you to notice that there is thinking happening. The trick here is I don't want you to talk back to your thoughts. I don't want you to accept or reject your thoughts. I just want you to watch your thoughts talk as if it's someone else who's speaking. Just let them run. We're in our heads all day long. There's nothing to run from. These thoughts are not going to get you. So as we're breathing, slowing down, we're just allowing our experience. This is inside of you all the time. Our breath, sounds, our bodies touching things, maybe a taste in your mouth, maybe a smell in the room. And then here's this sixth sense, which is your thoughts, and there's thought chatter. It's almost like this radio that you can't turn off. It's not you exactly who's creating the thoughts, but something like that. But all we want to learn how to do with our thoughts is just let them run without needing to address every single thing that comes up. What you'll notice when you're watching your thoughts is that, yes, one thought will come up, but then it will disappear. And now another thought is here. Then another thought will come up, and then it will disappear again. It's almost like clouds in the sky. Clouds, they look like trains or animals or different things. They're shifting and they're moving, but the sky remains. And that sky is your awareness. all we're doing now is we're practicing how to open up space to allow our thoughts to just be another part of our experience, no different from smells or sounds. Some smells won't smell so good, and other smells will smell really good. Just smells, nothing to run from, nothing to panic about. This is our awareness. We're just taking one more deep breath, breathing all the way in, breathing all the way out. When you're ready, you can open the eyes, come back to the room. So now if we have any comments or questions, you can pop them into the chat.
So, Dr. Sawyer, there are many, many comments simply showing appreciation and gratitude for your 2 exercises. I have 2 questions for you. 1, how do we quiet those many thoughts that bounce around while we're in the relaxation session?
Whew. The trick, this is important, don't try to quiet it down. Just get used to the volume. This is a tricky one. I had to deal with this maybe the first few months. I was like, why can't I shut my mind up? And once I started to see my mind as a part of me, as a part of my experience that I didn't need to push away or pull closer, I just allowed it. And I had that attitude of allowing. That's when, paradoxically, it started to quiet down. It's almost like when I stopped focusing on why is this thing not going away? Why won't my mind go away? When I was focusing on why it wouldn't go away, I was focusing on it. So the thoughts actually seemed louder and more disruptive than they actually were. So when we learn to train our attention to allow that space and we do this practice, because if people are out there and they were able to do that practice and even let their thoughts go a little bit, if you practice this daily, it would get quiet in about a couple of weeks. It would get much quieter. And then that silence really just persists and grows. I'm still getting quieter and quieter on the inside. Still, I'll notice sometimes in my thoughts and they'll be like, oh, yeah, no, I don't want to think anymore. And then I stop focusing on it. And it's that muscle that you can sort of take your attention and you pull it back to the present moment. And you're working your mind muscle. So don't try to quiet it down. Just allow yourself to be and sit. And then the thoughts will quiet themselves when you're not so focused on trying to quiet them. Very paradoxical, but we want to just sit and let our thoughts essentially. I love Twitter. Obviously, I have my handle on there. I like reading things on Twitter. Someone said meditation is like sitting there and letting your thoughts attack you. Essentially, that's what it is. But you want to learn that the needles that they're trying to poke you with are actually just made of silicone. You know, it's trying to frighten you, get you to move. But when you don't let it trick you into like, oh crap, I need to do something, and you just learn to sit, then you start to see the thoughts almost as immature, a little bit panicky. I don't need to write that email right now in meditation. You start to see the flawed logic and you stop trusting your thoughts as absolute, as things you need to address. And they're just kind of this annoying radio that you can't really shut off. So that great question, very important question.
One attendee observes that in demanding and high stress jobs, we can become habituated to the tension and the excitement. How can we transition from that need for all of that adrenaline?
Allow yourself to enjoy and delight in the adrenaline. This is tricky. This is a tricky one. But how do you learn how to ride those high waves and really appreciate and enjoy them? I would say it's really up to you. You get to choose how you want to engage in that adrenaline-based place. But really, just like everything else we've been talking about, feelings of safety, letting go of these thoughts, and then you should be able to transition. So I would say start with number one, the feelings of safety. If you feel like you want to transition, and when you're done for the day and you want to transition, that breath-based practice, that should be your home base, right? Your thoughts are going to be happening. They might even be like, adrenaline, but the stronger the power of your mindfulness, the more turns into that, okay, well, they're not playing with me, so I'm just going to kind of chill. Like we're not giving that attention, right? Your attention energizes things. So if you're having a lot of thoughts and feelings about the day and you're focusing on those things, they're going to grow. If you let them just sit there without watering them with your attention, then they just sort of quiet down. But this takes practice, and document, journal about it. Notice when I did this practice, this happened. When I was feeling this way and I did this practice, this happened. Then you can start to perfect which one is for me, which one is for me, and for when. If I'm too overwhelmed, maybe I need compassion. If I'm not so overwhelmed, maybe letting go of thoughts is a good one. Throughout the day, like between shifts, I like that safety one, and you just sort of make it work for you. But adrenaline, that high, so enjoy it. We don't want to suppress that. That's a part of life. But that's that razor's edge I was kind of talking about, being in the middle of things, but also holding on to your awareness. So yeah, great questions. And I want to make sure that we get to our visualization practice. So instructions for use, this is very similar to the other one. And I'll move more so into the living practice here on this slide. When feeling stress, breathe and let your thoughts run and just sort of let them go here. We're going to notice that they're right here. We're like, oh man, this happened and this, that. So we just want to start to just turn our heads and just let them be there without picking at them. Okay. And you can see thoughts like radio in the background. You can thank your mind for unhelpful thoughts. A thought comes up, thank you, mind, for that thought. I will take it under consideration. So we're not just going with whatever our thoughts say, right? And when speaking to others, breathe and tune into what they're saying. Okay. Listening to others is an extremely helpful mindfulness practice for unhelpful thoughts. Try to get captivated and engaged in what other people are telling you. Your kid is, oh, dad or mom or whatever, and coming up to you talking about something that, kids talk about, things that they just want you to hear and appreciate. Try to see if you can just appreciate what they're saying without your thoughts disturbing what it is. Did you do your homework? Okay, well, you got to go in the bath. You got to all these little, can you just engage and have that openness and presence and hold space for other people? Okay. And also one last tip with worry thoughts. Oh, well, this happened. No, this will happen. This will happen. This might happen. That. And then you respond with, maybe it's true, maybe it's not. And then move on, because your thoughts are literally trying to predict the future, which is impossible. I'm sorry to say. I say to clients a lot that if I could take away your worries and thoughts and give you all the answers already, I would. But I'm not telling you to do that. I'm trying to tell you to accept uncertainty and tell your thoughts to do the same thing, because that's how the world works. Our thoughts are trying to get at something that it can't get at. So we want to just be wise with that and know that our thoughts are like the horse driving the carriage, right? But we are in control. Don't let the horse ride you. Do you know what I'm saying? But let's move into our compassionate visualization. And so similarly, we want to bring that quality of breath and safety here. Whew, so we're breathing all the way in. We're taking in information. I'm talking about a lot of information. Let's move back into our space and breathe all the way in. We're breathing all the way out. So let's do this a couple more times. Breathe all the way in. All the way out. And then let your breath resume at a natural rhythm. And what I want you to do is bring to mind a person or a pet or a spiritual presence or deity, someone that is very easy for you to love, to feel affection for, someone who you love and someone who loves you, just for being you. best not to use complicated relationships here. Use just really pure relationships. So if you're thinking about, a parent where there's love, but there's complication, but you have a pet, use your pet instead. We want safe objects. Whoever it is, we imagine ourselves sitting on a couch across from this being. And we want to imagine ourselves staring deeply into the eyes of this being. We're just sitting and we're breathing. And we are looking into this being's eyes, and this being's eyes are full of love for you. If it's a pet, maybe the pet is urging for you to scratch its ear. If it's a person or spiritual deity, imagine this person or deity maybe holding your hand, looking into your eyes, just wanting you to know that there is love here, that there's safety here. And I want you to try and open to this experience, open to the love, to the compassion that this being is feeding you through their energy, through their eyes. They want you to feel safe. They want you to not be in pain. And when you are in pain, they are wishing for you to feel better. Just that energy of compassion and love. Just really sit with that and hold that image in your mind's eye of this being looking at you with eyes full of appreciation and gratitude for you just being you. Breathing into it and noticing any feelings that are coming up. If you feel tenderness, really allow that tenderness to expand. If you feel yourself closing down, just go back to your breath. Just breathe. If it's super intense, you can even just drop the imagery and go back to your breath. It's okay, whatever you're comfortable with. But as we're letting this energy expand and we're appreciating what this being is feeding us through their energy, I now want you to imagine yourself looking at this being. And now, how do you communicate to this being your compassion and appreciation for them? It might be a certain look. It might be you grabbing their hand. It might be something that you say to them. Whatever that is, I want you to imagine yourself saying that thing to them, or holding that hand. Or it might be in the form of gifts or things that they like. It may delight at you telling them jokes or making them a meal. Just whatever helps them understand that you have compassion for them. Imagine yourself giving that to them in this moment. You're sitting right across from them. And as you say that phrase or give that space or whatever it is, I want you to look at their eyes full of appreciation for what you're giving them. And I want you to, for a moment, delight in the fact that you just made them feel and reassured them that there is love here for them. Whatever feelings you're having, you just breathe into that feeling. Breathe into the feelings of gratitude, of compassion, of patience. and really sense the disappearance of that veil of separation between you and them. Now we're just here in a heart space together, loving them and them loving us. Breathe into really savor this space. Taking one more nice deep in breath. One last out breath. Opening the eyes and coming back to the room. Now we'll open for some questions and some discussion. We have about 10 minutes left. The instructions are for use are pretty much the same as the rest. If we have time, I'll sort of go through more living practice. But yeah, I really want to leave space for some questions and discussion.
Dr. Sawyer, Chris observes that sometimes people are too stressed to accept or return compassion offered to them. What are your thoughts on how to handle that?
I would say to start to engage yourself when you feel stressed. So, a lot of times, the difficulty in accepting compassion for others is not having enough compassion for ourselves. So, what will happen is that we are sort of, as one of the earlier slides knows, we are projecting our inner relationship onto our relationship with others. So, if someone tries to address my feelings with compassion, I don't do that with my own emotions. So, yeah, no, I'm not going to accept that when I'm stressed, right? So I think in combination with giving ourselves that sense of ease and kindness in whatever form is useful, because also for me, I had a very hard time accepting compassion and reading different books or things like that were just like, now open yourself like a flower and smell your fragrance. And I'm like, and I'm a man, like I'm very masculine. That just didn't really vibe with me. Like I was just like, for other people it does, but it's just not for me. So for me, it's in the form of like relaxation, ordering that food that I really like. That's a form of self-compassion. Watching that movie that I've been waiting to watch. Canceling the first appointment that I have for the next day so I can sleep in. Right. So those are also forms of self-compassion that we kind of have to get used to before we can accept it from others. And then also lastly, when in doubt, use that first practice. Sometimes it's just about relaxing and reducing the inflammation and breathing more so than it is about getting that level of intensity and that intense compassion, because we're all very, very afraid. There's a lot of fear in the society, a lot of being wound up. So sometimes that's step number one, right back to the breath. I mean, during the practice, if it's too intense, just go back to breathing, right? That'll get you there just the same. So yeah.
Stephen is interested in how these techniques may be helpful with people with PTSD.
I would say feelings of safety. I've designed these exact practices in light of what my clients were needing. One thing I was noticing, whether it's with obsessive compulsive disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, eating disorders, depression, all of these patients really benefited from number one, that safety practice, the cortisol hormone, and especially with PTSD, it's almost like being hit with a lightning bolt. And now you have this extra charged energy. And what we want to do is not try to cut the energy somehow and make it go away. We want to get more comfortable with the intensity. And sometimes the best things to do is to learn how to just control when I feel safe, right? And that doesn't mean I need to go out and, if I'm a war veteran, I need to go expose myself to, the fireworks and things like that and panic. We don't want to flood ourselves. All we want to do is practice feeling safe. And for many clients, and including myself and my own mental health issues that I had to deal with, it was about sitting in my meditation seat and learning how to just breathe and tell myself, Broderick, it's okay in this moment. You can breathe. You can feel safe to breathe. And then as we learn how to feel safe to breathe, then that breath and that grace that we're giving ourselves comes in the form of compassion. And then we start to see compassion in different ways. And then, okay, am I ready, to entering this triggering situation? No, I'm not exactly ready. I want to help myself, but also I'm not there yet. So then we can start to just meet ourselves where we're at. And that's again, just from number one, just from number one. Yeah.
Are you finding that more African Americans are taking advantage of mindfulness and compassion techniques?
Yes, absolutely. And this is one of the main reasons my dissertation was what it was. It was mindfulness and self compassion for racial stress. That's what it was. And the reason for that is that it's almost like racial trauma is almost like, okay, so there's a war veteran, and then they come back, and then now they see a bag on the side of the road, and they're reacting to the bag as if it's live fire. Okay, the difference between that kind of trauma and racial trauma is that the bag is not a fake, a fake sort of representation that's triggering me. It's actual trauma. It is live fire. So African Americans have to live in a world where they have the live fire all the time, so they can't really get that space to recover. Then also there's little microaggressions and different things like that. Can I trust my boss? They're nice, but they just came up to me and touched my hair, and they passed me over for that promotion, but I'm not sure. Am I doing something wrong? So all these things being thrown at African Americans. So mindfulness is a way to control, again, like I said earlier, that inner space. So how do I have that thought when I'm sitting at the end of the day and I'm thinking about angrily all the things that maybe my white coworker said or different things like that? If I can learn to, again, it's there, but I'm resting, right? Then when I enter back into that space and I need to focus on those thoughts, then I can. But then when I'm tired, I can. Then also self-compassion. An African American who is talking to themselves as if they love themselves, they have an inner narrative, self-talk that is opposite of white supremacy. If you want to remove white supremacy within your consciousness, if you want to remove the internalized racism, the less than, the inferiority complexes, whatever you got going on, if you learn to engage yourself with self-compassion, you are sending the opposite message than what an anti-Black society is sending you. And that's how you control that inner space. So mindfulness, self-compassion, very, very powerful. It's just something that you have to work at and perfect. It's not easy. And this is me struggling with I need these systems to change to help my clients, but I don't have control over that. So what do we have control over? And really it's that inner space.
Yashika asks, how can we best apply these techniques to reduce disparities in chronic health conditions that affect some populations more than others?
Mhm. I would say on multiple levels. Like first, we have the people who are actually suffering, right? And how do we help them just feel some emotional relief in this? But then you have the people who are providing the practices, right, or providing the treatments. And if those people feel relaxed, more attuned, compassionately, now I'm not cut off from as a caseworker from the issues that, let's say, the single Black mother in the South Side of Chicago is coming in with. I can actually open my feelings to her. I can actually feel what she's feeling, which will generate more action to resolve her pain. Because what am I doing? I'm seeing her pain as my pain. See? And then also on a societal level, if all governors and politicians had a compassionate awareness, they would be attuned to the feelings of people from at the bottom of the financial hierarchy all the way to the top. If we want to see someone who understands that, look at how Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez interacts. She is that emotional because she lived that life and she's attuned to it. There's a sense of urgency that she has with the working class because she was in that situation. Compassion is being able to connect with someone even though you weren't in that situation, right? To open the heart, right? If we all had people who were attuned to the needs of the people, then our society would be a much more attuned place. It wouldn't be so cut off in that way. So, yeah.
Dr. Sawyer, I want to thank you for this most fascinating presentation. We want to thank everyone who attended today for their time and their attention. I know that you gained a lot because all of the comments have been coming through, that they were absolutely wonderful comments and fascinated with what you had to say. We are going to send an email to everyone who registered with the links of all the resources mentioned today. And please do visit the Movement is Life Caucus website. You'll also find information there about our podcast, which we encourage you to subscribe to. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is all for today. Stay safe, be well, be compassionate, and goodbye for now. See you later.